Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. Why does my biceps get more sore than my triceps in my bench press days? Well, hopefully you mean after, not during, not in. A lot of reasons. Here's the thing. Training volume and the amount of stretch along with novel training response are usually what causes DOMS or soreness. It's not always about muscle stimulus. In other words, if it's not a novel training stimulus and there is no heavy eccentric component to whatever you're doing or stretch overload, you probably won't get sore. In fact, if you are getting sore, if you're getting really sore from something and it's something you're used to doing all the time, then you probably are using too much volume for whatever you're doing for that movement pattern. It's actually a bad sign. So let's come over to biceps. Biceps are a major stabilizer on bench. Now the other question becomes, are you doing other bicep work during that week? All right, do you train your biceps? Do you do stretch movements for your biceps like incline curls? All right, that could be a factor. But the wider your bench press grip is, the more of a role the biceps play as a stabilizer. So they're getting some stimulus there, and because again they're stabilizing really hard, possibly on the eccentric, could be what's going on. So it's a few things going on. If you are not training your biceps at all, like you're doing zero bicep training and this is happening, it might be an indicator that you need to probably do some bicep work. It may improve your bench press. At the very least, it'll improve the bar path of your eccentric rep for better control. It might be a sign that you need to train your biceps. But make sure the soreness is actually coming from your benching and not something else you're doing. If you're doing a bunch of incline curls or something, that probably explains it. All right, next question. On a 5-3-1 template, what are your thoughts on doing something like 6x5 instead of 5x10 for the accessory work? Don't you mean 5x5? Like that's not a proper comparison. It doesn't make sense. 6 sets instead of 5 sets because you changed the reps. There's no point. That doesn't make sense. You want to do more volume? I mean, if you want to do more volume, then add another set. Do 6x10. So I don't really get the 6x5 thing. Uh, Again, maybe people have these bizarre ideas that the exact rep count is how that works. That's not how it works, guys. So I'm a little confused by the question. Had you said 5x5, the question would actually make sense to me. So I'll assume you said 5x5 because you threw me off with that one. But all right, 5x5. You could do it for phases on a couple lifts. You're going to do it on everything? I don't think so. Also, the thing to factor in, you could certainly just do more sets. If you want to get more heavy work on the main lift, there are versions of the template that allow for that. If your goal is to get more mechanical tension and more heavy sets, there are template variations for that. It's part of the system. I don't think it's necessarily ideal for all your accessory work. I've done stuff like this a little bit. I program it some for clients, but it's not something I recommend for long periods of time. Tens are going to get you thicker with less beating you up. And that's kind of the whole point with the 10 rep sets, is the recovery aspect. And when I say thicker, if you can recover better, you can handle more workloads. Hey, that's the problem with the heavy fives. It's the problem we run into with a bunch of heavy fives. They do start to beat you up real quick. And you already have a system to where on 4 lifts every week, you're doing a 1 to 5 rep range. And if you use some of the templates because you want more volume with it, it's a pretty substantial amount of volume. So it kind of makes sense to stick with the others. And here's what I might recommend. If you really wanted to extend the volume a lot for the primary lifts, I'm going to recommend that you change the others to other lifts for the supplemental work anyways. In other words, I don't recommend that you do your classic lifts, right? Your primary lifts for accessory work, like on a boring but big template, if you're going to do something like that. Go ahead and use other lifts. Use other supplemental lifts. Use accessory lifts themselves. And then come in and do higher reps on most of that. Because I can tell you right now, as someone who has messed with a lot of heavy fives, heavy threes, things like that, who also looks at the research and looks at my own clients, they're all in agreement. My personal anecdote, my client anecdote, and the research actually all kind of match up. You're not going to run a bunch of heavy fives for your accessory work for long periods of time. Okay, you're not going to do it. It's going to beat you up and you're going to make less gains because of the recovery end. Says me. Feel free to disagree. You guys can program for your clients however you want. All right, next question. Why doesn't having strong legs auto make you a fast runner? Why do you often see runners who look like they have no leg strength outrun or outkick a runner who looks like they lift? Are you talking about hypertrophy or strength? Because you put strong and then you talk about look like you lift. Well, simply put, not all hypertrophy is guaranteed to improve sports performance. It can, but it's not guaranteed to do it, because force production is about neuromuscular efficiency and using the hypertrophy that you have. And I don't know what runners you're talking about. There are sprinters out there, world-class sprinters, who squat 500, 550, 600 pounds. They said Ben Johnson was a 600-pound squatter. So, I mean, if we're going to use this as an example, are you telling me that he wasn't a good runner? You're telling me he wasn't fast? Did you not see all those Olympics? He was the fastest man in the world at one time. He had a 600-pound squat. So when you say something like that, I really don't know what in the fuck you were talking about. I don't think you know what you're talking about. Almost all world-class level sprinters, when you put them under a barbell, have a monstrous squat. Yeah, it does correlate. No, having big quads from doing a bunch of leg extensions doesn't automatically make you a good runner. But there's absolutely a carryover between speed and absolute strength. It's been demonstrated over and over and over. You may be confusing hypertrophy differences from person to person rather than in the same individual. I promise you that if you decide to go sprint and you work on your absolute strength and you get your squat, you put 200 pounds on your squat, I promise you that your 40 meter, your 100 meter time is going to go down a little bit. It's going to happen if you're an actual runner. But again, we come over to sports specific skills. Hey, someone who doesn't run at all, okay, and they don't practice running, they don't train for running, may not be that fast of a runner just because they're strong. But in the context of people who actually train for running, having squat strength is heavily correlated with sprinting ability. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.